It is that time on a Tuesday, so y'all know what that means. We are joined by my brother Tony is in the building, standing at 6'6", 312 pounds. How we feeling today?
Another day, man. Another day, so we keep it moving.
If you was that size and weight, would you be an offensive lineman or a wrestler?
What was the height and weight again?
6'6", 312.
6'6", 312.
You going
Christ.
you going to the old line or you going to wrestling?
6'6", 312? Like shit. I mean, if football's gotta be the play, like football's the move, but it's just like fuck. I don't wanna play football. But like what else can I do at that size?
Be
Can't be
Dewamba
a regular
2.0.
human being. That's ass.
Oh man. Um Obviously we got football season coming here in a few weeks. About a week and at what the 4th is the first game. So obviously everyone's gonna have
NFL?
their yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Thursday, September the 4th. Yeah, Cowboys, Eagles on Thursday night football.
And that game's gonna be a blowout. But then we'll have good football in about 3 days. So everyone obviously has their opinions, their views, and everyone's gonna get off the off season, especially for the NFL, which has turned into basically this 12-month adventure. Like everyone gets off their opinions, everyone gets off their takes. Some people would call me a hypocrite. I prefer my rightful term as a hater. The Chiefs and Lions were the 2-1 seeds. Now
Hold on,
I
bro.
have
Hold
the
on.
all right. So the Chiefs and Lions were the 2-1 seeds from last year, and a lot of the talk is that people feel like both teams are going to regress. Some people feel like the Chiefs have already regressed because statistically we haven't seen the same Mahomes that we're used to these last 2 years. The Lions, their belief is that, well, you lost both your coordinators, and we just saw this happen a few years ago with the Eagles, where they go to the Super Bowl, lose both their coordinators, and we see still a very talented team, but clearly a step back, and that's what started off this conversation on Sirianni.
Hmm.
Are we killing either the Chiefs or Lions too early in your opinions, considering those were by record and definition, the two best teams in the league last year? Outside of obviously the Eagles came through and kicked everybody's ass, but
I don't. I personally haven't heard anyone kill off either team. I know I have the Lions representing the NFC in the Super Bowl, and I mean people. I feel like many people still consider Kansas City a live, threat to compete for the title, even if you have the Ravens and the Bills in front of them, which I think is fair just because the rosters are better. But I haven't heard anyone completely dismiss the Chiefs, and I don't think you can based on who the quarterback is and who the head coach is. They're going to have Rasheed Rice for some games. They're going to have Xavier Worthy in the second season. You would hope Hollywood Brown can be healthy and contribute. Travis Kelce is, I think, on the downslide. I think a lot of people feel he's on the downslide, but be interesting to see what they get from him. And also interesting to see if Pacheco can, kind of get some juice back. He dealt with injury last year and wasn't really the same after that. So if he can, get that juice back and run hard for them, that matters a lot. I think we expect the defense to still be pretty good, even though, like I've said, and I will keep saying, I think they're going to miss Justin Reed a lot. And then offensive line wise, how good is the offensive line going to be? Like the last time we saw them, they were getting their ass kicked by the Eagles. And they are not the only people to get their ass kicked by the Eagles, to be fair. So that can happen to
that's
anybody. But
no
they
doubt.
struggled a lot all last season. And it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. Now, when you look at the Lions, they also have like their own injury things going on over there. You want to see if Hutchinson can come back from the leg injury and be as productive as he was pre-injury. Obviously, it's going to take some time. They already lost Enes Rakestraw for the season, which is tough. I think they lost Elaine McNeil for the season, or at least one of the defensive linemen. If it's not McNeil, forgive me, but I think they lost one for the season already. So they have some things to deal with, but I do think that offense is going to be even better. I think that obviously losing Ben Johnson matters, but they still have a lot of talent there to work with. And I do trust Dan Campbell as a head coach to be able to fill those spots and get things going. And you got another year Jahmyr Gibbs, you got another year Jameson Williams, another year of Amon Ra. So I just expect them to keep on chugging offensively. And they'll miss Frank Ragnow on that offensive line, but like I said, I trust Dan Campbell to kind of replace the pieces that he lost and keep things chugging. And I like the kid that they drafted out of Georgia, so I think that that's a good sign for them as far as development goes.
So you're the and this happens every year, right? Where the team that wins the Super Bowl, they feel like they're unbeatable for pretty much the whole offseason, damn near. With some rare exceptions, right? Like if you got somebody retire, obviously that takes it away. But you're a team like the Eagles who is pretty much the consensus pick as best team in the NFL, bound to repeat. Why do you have the Lions over the Eagles?
I just think it's hard to repeat, number one. Um, I think the Eagles can do it, but also a lot of things have to like just kind of shake in a very particular way. When you look at that
Mm-hmm.
Eagles team, like they were really dominant last year. Obviously, Saquon has the crazy year, but things shook their way. Like they could have lost to the Rams at home in that playoff game. Like that could have happened. They could have lost other games throughout the season. But when it's your time, it's your time. And this isn't
Mm-hmm.
a thing of like deep analysis or crazy takes or crazy thoughts. It's just one of those football things where it's like, hey, sometimes shit is just on your side. And I do think that when you have the talent, the luck meets you in the middle. And I think for the Lions, this is just that time. The Eagles could I have them in the Eagles, I have the Lions and the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. That is what I have. I don't really see any other team in the NFC capable of beating those teams to win the Super Bowl. I can listen to a Green Bay argument, but outside of that, I don't really see it with a lot of other teams. So I think that I can listen to a Rams argument as well, but the Stafford thing is just is lingering big. So 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 I think those two teams are in a tier of their own when we talk about ability to win a championship. And and like I said, I just think that this is just going to be the Lions' time. And the Eagles benefited from not dealing with a lot of injury last year. Obviously, Jalen Hurts missed some time with that concussion, but that is such an outlier compared to the season they did have health wise.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're going to have some turnover on the back end there. No CJ, GJ. Obviously, Slay's in Pittsburgh now. Milton Williams is gone. It's going to be some change on that front, and I still expect that to be a dominant front because I just think Jalen Carter's that good. He lifts a lot of ties, but
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be change. There's going to be a change there, and some choices to be made. So
No, 1,000%. And to the part of repeating, since 2000, only two quarterbacks have repeated. And there are a lot of people will tell you it's the consensus go in Brady and Mahomes. So it's like repeating is a bitch. Um, Also, the Eagles, I do think there is a element of, and I've said this a few times before, of like you're gonna have some natural fallback. Like, and it's not even necessarily a criticism, but like if Saquon has a 16, 1700 yard season, that's 300 yards less than he had last season. If Jalen Carter is not quite a double digit sack guy, if Zach Braun's not quite plays at the best middle linebacker in football, like there's a bunch that could just slowly regress to the means where they're still all stars, all pros, but they're not
exactly, and the Zach
potentially
Bond
best at
thing
their
is big.
position. Mm-hmm. And it's like, because again, his season you could argue was as good as anybody, but I don't think he's as good as Fred Warner, Roquan Smith. Those guys, to me, I would, if they had that season, I would just say, okay, it's more likely to repeat. This is our first time seeing Bond play at that level. Like, there's a reason why he signed the 1 year prove it deal. Moving over to the AFC and your team. So the Ravens are voted the number one best roster. Also voted this is on ESPN poll where they rated not only overall rosters but every position group. So Lamar was the Ravens had the number one quarterback room. Now they do say they take into account backups. So I think who's Ravens backup?
That's very funny. That is very fucking funny.
Because they went Ravens 1, Bills 2, Chiefs 3, and one of the first things they said was like, well, we took consideration the backups, and I'm like, I couldn't think of anybody's backup off the top of my head. I still thought the Chiefs had Carson Wentz. He's apparently no longer there. So that was my learning of that. Um, but what are your thoughts on, like, do you believe the Ravens truly have the best roster in football? And do you think there is Mahomes obviously has his resume is out of here as far as anyone actively playing. But do you think
Hmm.
I think Lamar's got the second best resume because of the multiple MVPs. does Lamar have a valid case for being ranked the number one quarterback heading into the season, and do the Ravens have a valid reason for being the number one roster?
To the first question, I think they do have the best roster. I think at worst they're tied for the best roster with the Eagles, even if they don't flat out have it. And I think the Jair acquisition probably pushed that over the edge for many people to feel that way when you get a guy who can, on any given Sunday, be a top five corner. You got him for nothing, essentially. So, obviously you have the health risk there and the injury risk, I should say. But that matters a lot when you're talking about like roster construction and things like that. As far as Lamar goes, I think he is the best quarterback in football, and that's not a disrespect to Pat. I think when we talk about just as a whole and career-wise, Pat's clearly in like a world of his own. He's a three-time champion, multiple Super Bowl MVPs, multiple regular season MVPs. Like he's in the league of his own. Closer to he's closer to the Bradys and the Mannings than he is otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
But when we talk about the game heading into the 2025 season, I think Lamar is the best quarterback. And I think that, the only thing he doesn't have is a championship. When we talk about these all-time conversations, and I do think that championship will push him to a different place as well. But, you know, you look at his resume as a whole, you look at the two MVPs, the one unanimous MVP. Second MVP was literally a vote short of being a two-time unanimous MVP. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Multiple number one seeds out of the AFC. He made the AFC Championship game 2 seasons ago, and just had one of the greatest quarterback seasons of all time. You could argue it was the
Should have been
greatest
the MVP.
season. Should have been MVP. Could argue it was the greatest season any quarterback's ever had. He rushed for 900 yards, threw for over 4,000 yards, 40 plus touchdowns, on less than five interceptions. Like that's crazy. So, he's only missing the Super Bowl, and he'll have, every opportunity with this team and this upcoming season to finally get that monkey off his back.
No, it's kind of like a take I don't necessarily want to put out there for a myriad of reasons. As much as I'm a Chiefs hater, like if Mahomes was on any other team, like I would like him way more. That's just the reality of the situation. Is Lamar though, like the take I won't 100% commit to, but is like with the way the roster is now, and let's say they like theoretically went all in, and that's never been Baltimore's always been really smart. Ren, they do very good with contracts, and so I don't think they would do this. But if you did the theoretical, like, yo, we're gonna be in contract hell immediately after this and have to cut some guys, release some guys, make salary cap work. But if they
Hmm.
got a back to back out of it, Lamar would have an absolute argument that his resume is as good as Mahomes. If he got two Super Bowls, so Mahomes would have three, Lamar would have two. You'd go to MVPs. Overall, statistically great seasons. Lamar would be right there with Mahomes because even though Lamar has had injuries to accumulate for a little under a season, Mahomes has had back to back down seasons from like that high end quarterback echelon of like he's not out there throwing for 4,500 to 5,000 yards. Like Lamar would have a real argument. Josh probably would too. I just don't think the Bills can do it. I think there's some fucking curse about that franchise. So I can't even put that into like the atmosphere of like, oh yeah, if the Bills just won back to back Super Bowls, and it's like, it's the Bills. They just
Because this is a team that lost four straight Super Bowls before. Well, a
they
franchise rather,
yeah
not a team, but it's a franchise that lost four straight Super Bowls. It's tough.
yeah like that shit is crazy. Um, I do want to I want to ask you one college football and then one media question. So obviously college football starting up. A Um, your thoughts on obviously your Trojans, Lincoln Riley, and what the expectations are for this year, and with previewing, and we're going to talk a little more next week too, the teams to really watch out for in your mind this year in college football.
To the USC of it all, I don't think they have any expectations, which is why this doesn't feel like a season that they have to do, like there's no expectation going into this. Nobody really expects this team to compete for the playoffs. They're going into the season unranked, I believe. So it's just, you got Jaden Maiava, who took over late last season and showed a lot of flashes, had some turnover problems, but that was to be expected in the spot he was in. But he's got a lot of potential and it's a young team. It's a really young team. And you look at it, and they have Makai Lemon, who's projected to be wide receiver one in next year's draft, at worst wide receiver three, and that's at worst, like that's his floor of being wide receiver three. So I think that um, it should be a fun season. Like last year was a lot because they lost a lot of close games and they gave a lot of wins away based on the the quarterback play early of Miller Moss and not being able to really make a lot of plays late. They lost the Michigan game that they should have won, lost the Maryland game that they should have won. Like they lost so many games by a score, or even if you want to talk about like three points, 4 points, shit like that, that I think that they can correct there because that kind of situation always reverts to the other side where you win the close games the season after losing them a lot. When we
Mm-hmm.
go to the sport as a whole, and when you look at the teams to watch out for, obviously you have the main guys of Ohio State, you got Oregon, and you got Georgia, of course, who I think who was probably my early pick to win the college football national championship. I think Kirby's going to get him back there, and then the Texas of it all, who was probably the betting favorite for a lot of people in Arch's first full season, and then with a lot of talent that Steve Sarkisian's acquired over the last few years, like the talent. When you talk about who's the most talented team, is probably Texas. When you talk about who's the most talented team in the country, I think Alabama's going to have something to say. I think they're being underlooked a little bit. That's still a team with a lot of talent, and I do think Kalen DeBoer is a good coach. I think it was rough sledding last year in that first season in Tuscaloosa, but I think that he's going to kind of correct that there. Penn State is a team that a lot of people projecting to win the Big Ten. I'm just not all the way there with Drew Aller, but they have two really great running backs. They're going to have a really good defense. So I can absolutely see Penn State being there in the end when we talk about who's competing for the Natty. And outside of that, like you're always going to have the teams that surprise and kind of come out of nowhere and things like that. So going to be interesting to see what Nebraska does when Riola's a new season there with Riola, and they picked up some guys in the portal. Um, what team was I just thinking about? Miami. So Carson Beck comes in from Georgia. He replaces Cam Ward. Carson Beck this time last year was looked at as a wide receiver. I mean, quarterback one, quarterback two for a lot of people when we talk about this past
Mm-hmm.
draft. He struggled last year at Georgia. Had some injury issues as well, so he transferred to Miami, and I think that's going to be big for him as far as lifting up that draft stock. And I do think he's going to have a really good season with Miami as well. So I'm interested to see how that looks. And Clemson, Dabo's got, as much as I hate Dabo Sweeney, I can't speak for everybody else, but as much as I don't like the motherfucker, he's got a really good team. He's got many people's QB1 in next year's draft in K Klubnik. So I think Clemson is going to be a team that is going to have something to say when we talk about the college football national championship. And a team that I'm going to be watching a lot of this year to see how they play is South Carolina and Lenore Sellers. Can he make that jump? Can Nick Harbor make that jump? He's probably the most physically gifted player in college football. And then that defense and Dylan Stewart, who was a true freshman last year, this is his sophomore season. He will probably be, if not the number one pick, a top five pick when he's eligible after next season. He's insanely talented. So I'm excited to see how South Carolina looks. But Georgia is my early pick for the national championship.
Georgia whipped my ass so bad in NCAA 26. I went straight to DraftKings, put some money on them. I was like, I haven't been like fucked up
I
by like a
respect it.
computer in a video game for so long. I was like, gosh damn. So yeah, no, I don't blame you on the Georgia pick. Last thing here. So ESPN is trying this really weird thing, right? Which is we just gonna try to we are partnering ourselves with the NFL as well as the last couple of years because of the direction they decided to go. They outside of exactly NFL Live, I feel like they've had a hard time like creating new talent. So like they give Pat a bunch of money, bring Pat in. They obviously brought Shannon in before that went away. And now that they are paired
Whatever
with the
happened there.
NFL, that's it's hey man, look, don't be a milkman if you don't want to pay the prices. The the direction of going now that they are literally contractual business partners with the NFL, I think it's a really scary road because to me,
Yeah.
it's like it's gonna be it's hard to take a lot of them serious anyway. But the one division that like the one show that is held up is NFL Live. It's like Mina, Dan, even if you disagree with them, like the way you see them break down, like even Marcus Spears, who to me sometimes comes off a little corny, it's like, they know football, they know what they're talking about. And they're given like these breakdowns and everything. Should we be scared of losing that now that they are literally in bed with the NFL?
No, because that show was never a show that was critical of the league. And the only person up there that, well, I don't want to say the only person, but the biggest star up there is Mina, who just re-upped her deal with ESPN, I think last year, 2 years ago. And she can say what she wants to say about the league, but and even she's not like super overcritical of the league outside of, things that may involve sexual assault or domestic violence, things like that. So that's not something that like you should worry about. What's the worry of this deal comes when we talk about the journalism aspect of it and be the stories that are told. I think that we are in a time where, and we see it every day with who, quote unquote runs this country. I'm using heavy quotes with that. We see journalism is in a place where it's afraid. Um, it lacks backbone. It lacks integrity, and sports journalism is one and the same. If we to political journalism, we are going to
Mm-hmm.
be in a space where things happen in the NFL, and its stories are buried in a way that they haven't been in a long time, and things aren't reported or come out, at least from the ESPN side of it all. I'm not going to speak for other outlets, but it's not going to be reported, and that's what I worry about, the journalism aspect of this. And we know that the NFL is just it's not a great business, from a standpoint of doing right by people.
Morality.
It's a great business if we talking financially, of
Mm-hmm.
course, but we talk about morality and things like that. It's just not a great business. And I mean, many sports organizations, sports leagues aren't, but the NFL is just in a tier of its own,
Mm-hmm.
especially with the violence of the game,
Yeah.
the characters that are around and in the game. It's tough. So I think
Mm-hmm.
when you look at ESPN and the products that they put on TV, they already aren't that great. So from an entertainment standpoint,
Yeah.
I hope I
Yeah.
hope I hope they don't ruin Red Zone. I hope they don't fuck with what they do best. I hope they don't fuck with what, what NFL Network does with their Sunday morning show. I just hope those things don't get fucked up. But I more so have so much worry about the the coverage of the league and the lack of information that we as fans will start to get the deeper into this deal that it goes.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see some situations where like and I don't want to put this on anybody necessarily because these are some horrible things, but if you take even a situation like we got to find out about Aaron Hernandez damn near in real time. Like he was arrested and that shit was on TV like 20, 30 minutes later. And it was like social media infancy. So it's like now you'd be like, oh, 20, 30 minutes, that ain't shit because we're finding out stuff so fast. But
Hmm.
now it's like the damage control aspect of it. Like, if do you get the way that the nasty nigga in Cleveland was covered? Do you get that same kind of coverage, or is the NFL, do they try to bury it or change it before they gets publicly announced? Because that was even nasty then because he got caught after requesting a trade, and it was like, well, we knew this shit like a year and a half ago, so there was already some nasty cover up going on, and that's unfortunately
Hmm.
always going to happen because people with money will do that. And so now
Right.
when it's like, okay, the people who now were supposed to report on that, they're also getting told, hey, yo, hush it up for like an hour or two until we can spin this a certain way or we can put the story we want out there. And so That's absolutely a threat to just the journalism aspect of it all. Oh man. Hey, appreciate you as always, bro, for coming on Tuesdays. Don't forget you can always hear Tony on the group chat podcast. Excuse me. He got TM 101 to number 1 on our top 10 albums last week. So shout out to
Hey,
him.
man.
Shout out to that album as well. But
The
he
re
was
the
he was a
real
big part
no.
of that. Nah, it's a fact. So catch him again on this week on group chat, and y'all can hear him every here Tuesday on HardFoul Radio. Appreciate you, bro.
Peace, man.
I mean, if you want to be a part of one of the coolest, most unique communities, don't forget to like and subscribe.